Thank you all for being here as well. Thank you, Premier, for that introduction, which neatly sums up the fact that family violence response and our investment in family violence has been a hallmark of this government so far, but we also appreciate that in times of crisis, in times of disaster, the risks that are posed to many in our community are heightened. We have been, of course, reminding Victorians to stay at home at the moment to stop the spread of the coronavirus, but we also know that for many, home is not a safe place to be, as sad a reality as that is. And I know that the pandemic presents really unique challenges for those experiencing family violence, but also for those services that are supporting those people who are experiencing family violence. And we've said throughout this event that we remain committed to ensuring that people experiencing family violence are kept as safe as possible, which is why today we are announcing a further allocation of $20.41 million to support critical and immediate services that are targeting the perpetrators of family violence, those who use violence in the home in order to keep victim survivors safe. Now, this investment will essentially get more perpetrators of family violence into alternative accommodation, which, it should be highlighted, supports victim survivors of family violence to be able to remain safely in their own homes. We know that this is particularly important for those with children, where the disruption to daily life at the moment is already pretty significant with homeschooling and the like, or remote learning, and so that stability of being able to stay in your own home can be absolutely critical for many, many families. So paving the way for perpetrators to be moved out of the home is a really significant and helpful development to those experiencing family violence in situations where that can be done. It also means that perpetrators are held accountable and are also, and really importantly, kept in view of the system. And we can't underestimate the significance of having people who use violence in view of the system and actively engaged in the system, because that's one way that we can, of course, manage risk, but we can also ensure that those people are getting the services that they need to ultimately improve their behaviour and keep their families safe. We also know, and I've touched on this, that the coronavirus pandemic has created some challenges for the delivery of many of our services, our family violence services, across the breadth of those services, noting, of course, that there is a lot of different components to them. And this is why we're also increasing the support for services as they adjust their service delivery models to this remote environment, this physical distancing environment, and while also expanding the reach of many of those services as well, which we know is critically important at this time. It's also worth noting that within this funding package is funding to expand support services for young people who are using violence in the home as well. To give some sort of context as to why our focus today is on services and accommodation options for perpetrators of violence, I said a couple of months ago when I was standing here that we would be keeping in contact with the family violence service system almost daily to get a sense of what they were seeing, of where the demand was appearing. And one of the demand spikes that we've seen has been in the men's referral service. We've seen an 11% spike in calls to that referral service over the last 4 weeks compared to this time last year, which has demonstrated to us that there is a real demand there that needs to be met, and meeting that will ultimately protect the victim survivors of family violence, those families that are most at risk by those perpetrators not getting the support that they need. I also wanted to highlight in this, and it's a message that we've been taking every opportunity to convey, and it is a critically important message, which is that if you are experiencing family violence, if you are unsafe in your home, it is perfectly legitimate to leave. You will not be fined, and it's also really important to appreciate that services are still there to assist you. The service system is still operating, albeit maybe looking a little bit different at the moment. Finally, I just wanted to touch on too, in relation to that funding package, to put a bit of a human face to it, a human context to it, just how each component, and it's got a number of components, and we can provide you the full details of that after this press conference. But the short-term accommodation and behaviour change programs that are accounted for within this allocation of funding will reach about 1,500 people. The longer-term accommodation options that are accounted for within this package will impact about 100 people, and there will be around about 470 young people who are using violence in the home or indeed displaying sexually abusive behaviours that will be able to access programs as a part of this package. I'm happy to answer any questions on anything in relation to that package, or indeed about the experience of family violence during this pandemic so far.
How are those perpetrators, the 1,500, I guess, identified? Have they been through the courts before? What's the sort of, how are you identifying them?
So essentially what we're seeing through that 11% spike in the men's referral service numbers that we've seen, it's demonstrating that men are reaching out themselves for support. That could be due to any number of reasons as to why during this context men would be taking the opportunity to reach out for that support. You know, a month or so ago we ran the Respect Women Call It Out campaign ad, which depicted a man in his home demonstrating abusive behaviour. We know on the back of that, anecdotally speaking to the men's referral service, which was advertised in that ad, that men did reach out on the back of that ad, recognising in that ad their own behaviour.
Do you have any statistics at the moment from the police, or an estimate as to how much family violence has gone up over the past couple of months over the lockdown?
I can give you some of the family violence enforcement figures that have come out of Operation Ribbon, if that's helpful for some context. So we know that the most up-to-date figures that we've got, that police have conducted 16,034 compliance checks. That includes 11,291 contacts with victim survivors, so that's police contacts with victim survivors, and 4,742 contacts with perpetrators of violence. That's as of the 9th of August. We know that in those sort of compliance checks or safety checks, that police have detected 4,436 family violence offences, including breaches of intervention orders and assaults. That's resulted in over 558 people being charged and remanded for family violence related or other criminal offences. And there's a further 470 people who have been arrested and will appear in court at a later date.